Happy to have you in the space. I just get chills to know where we're going today, and very excited to get there with you. As always, it's going to be a luminous now that we arrive at. It's really, like we keep coming back to this phrase from A Course in Miracles, a journey without distance to a place that we've never left. And so we are moving through psychological space and psychological time to come to an origin moment where we can choose again to be who we truly are as these divine beings. And like we were looking at last week, we really only have two choices to see ourselves as, and we were using the symbology of Genesis in the Bible. We could either be the skin and see things through the eyes of the skin, and that's a Hebrew word or we can be the light and see things through the eyes or vision of the light. And that is also another Hebrew word or, spelled slightly differently. So it's an either or. And what we're looking at here then is a coming to terms with who we truly are. Are we choosing to be a self that we're not, or are we choosing to accept the self that we are? And through this acceptance, we journey. Through this desire to seek and find, we come to know ourselves again. And it's a very different experience. Because right now, again, in A Course in Miracles, he distinguishes between the operations of the mind when it's perceiving, and he distinguishes that with the operations of the mind when it's knowing. When you're perceiving, you're seeing yourself as an individual separate from what you're perceiving. And the stimulus that you're experiencing from the object of your perception is somehow needing to be interpreted by you in order to make sense. So that's perception. There's a split, there's a separation, and then you are the interpreter and determiner of what you're seeing. And perception is very selective. It's not taking in the full scope of reality. You're actually selecting a part of reality, a little slice, and you're interpreting and judging and evaluating that slice of reality and then making that what you experience and oftentimes define as reality itself. And he's saying this is really what's going to continue this ignorance within the mind, where you're interpreting things in a faulty way and not seeing who you really are. So when we're seeing through the eyes of the skin, we're perceivers. When we're seeing through the eyes of the light or the spirit, we're knowers or Gnostics. And the word gnosis or Gnostic is very different. When you're knowing something in this way, you intuitively experience it as one with you. There's no division. There's an immediacy of truly understanding the essence of what you're experiencing, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, etc. There is an intuitive, direct, immediate knowing. So there's no separation between the seer, the process of seeing, and the scenery, the knower, the process of knowing, and what is known. So this is a very different kind of reality that we're journeying into, this place that we've never left. What's blocking us from knowing this true gnosis or knowledge is all of our perceptions, all of our interpretations, all of our evaluations, all of our judgments. And they are all based within the sliding scale of desire, of good and bad, as we interpret it. So do you see how, as the interpreter, you've identified as this separate skin identity, and you've isolated yourself, you've selected your own identity out of the totality. And as a result, you're a fragment within a fragmented universe. Now, not only does that produce fear in the mind, because there's really no true joining or relationship with everything that you're experiencing. You're separate from everything. When you're separate from everything, that produces anxiety because everything else is alien. It's not you. Quite the contrary. When you have knowledge, you realize everything is you. Everything is actually light. There's one fundamental unity consciousness that underlies and permeates and is all things. It's the deep substratum of your own consciousness. That's the journey, to come back to the substratum, the ground of your being, true knowing, true loving. Right? So that's the journey we're going on today. And where we find ourselves in the East of Eden experience of perception. So we need to retool or tweak perception in order to come home. It's the only way we can understand knowledge again. We just can't grok or understand knowledge if we aren't able to basically have a ladder or a map of some kind to get us into alignment, into the right direction, where this inner knowledge is to be found. So that's why we look to these great master teachers and the great scriptures of the world, because they are symbol systems. They are ways of perceiving rightly. In other words, they are perceptual systems, symbol systems, that align with, resonate with reality, spirit, light, the deep substratum of your being, where you can come back into relationship with yourself. But keep in mind, when you come back into relationship, or you truly know yourself again, you will also know everything and everyone. That's what we're going to focus on today. So the message is, we are the universe. And we'll unpack all of that as we go along today, but keep in mind that we are undergoing a journey from an isolated individual who doesn't know him or herself and is in a state of perception and fear and separation, to the experience of you as the universal self, which is going to be this immediate awakening experience where you realize that you're coming alive as the totality of the universe, manifesting itself in this moment, in its divine nature. So this is quite the event if we are truly on board with experiencing it. And when we come back to this total perception or universal identity, that is peace. So we're also playing on the word in Hebrew for peace, which is shalom. And shalom in Hebrew comes from a root, shin lamed mem, which is wholeness. So they oftentimes will give you a matrix of meaning for a word, so that you can understand the deeper nuances of what they're implying in the word. And the matrix of meaning for peace means that in order to know peace, you have to know your wholeness. You have to know the totality. You have to know the underlying substratum or unity consciousness of all being, because that's what's really you. You're not the ephemeral will-o-wisp manifestation that is here today and gone tomorrow. If you put all of your stock in that identity that was born in time, gets old, gets sick, and dies, it's like Jesus saying you've built your entire life on a bedrock of sand. The winds of challenge and crises will blow against that house, that life that you built on the shifting, changing sand as your foundation. And you'll never have peace. You'll never have stability. So to know yourself means to build your life on the bedrock of the light, the substratum, your true foundation, so that the crises will come, the challenges will arise, but you will remain in the changeless state, in this immovable, indestructible knowledge of who you really are and who everyone else really is. Because you're in a house of mirrors, and you no longer are beguiled by the shifting and changing appearances. You now see the one reality behind all forms. And you see that all events that are happening in the world are actually secretly being governed by this power, which will lead all things back into love. So that's the journey for this morning. I'd like to start by just becoming quiet inside, if that hasn't happened for you yet, knowing how important it is to ground the mind, calm the attention. And so we share in this collective intention to turn our awareness inward, away from the ever-changing appearances of the external world, and to seek the stability, the silence, the peace that is found deep within, in the ground of our being. And we know that we cannot undergo this journey by ourselves, that we are in need of a guide, a shepherding force to take us into the domain that lies beyond our understanding and way beyond our reason and thinking. And so we invoke the presence of the divine teacher in whatever form resonates for you at this time. But we give all of our allegiance, all of our trust into the hands of this divine guide. That the words that are spoken, may they come from this source. What is heard and interpreted, may it be learned and seen through the lens or framework of his perception in your mind. May we open this secret door within us so that we may begin to hear the voice of life call us home. And so it is. So I have a couple of things to share from Albert Einstein this morning. So here's a quote from one of the great master teachers of science in our last century. The most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the sower of all true science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their primitive forms. This knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of true religion. So, spoken from somebody who is praised for his rational, logical, intellectual prowess. Nevertheless, he would be the first to tell you that everything that came through his intellect and rational faculty was done through inspired, mystical, deep in touchness with the mystery of being that lies beyond the intellect. It's like Mozart, when Mozart would actually hear the symphony played in full, and he would just dictate, write down the notes that he heard in the higher realms. Just channeling. So this is what our human inheritance offers us. There are domains, levels, ranges of understanding and perception that are way beyond our five senses and our limited thinking mind. And so with Einstein, we have this reminder that no matter how scientifically advanced our culture, society may become, it is still a dim shadow, a dull representation of what is possible. Okay? May we strive to bring in, to channel, to manifest these infinite possibilities and not stop or limit ourselves through our thoughts and rational beliefs. Einstein continues, the scientist's religious feeling takes the form of a rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that in comparison with it, the highest intelligence of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. This feeling is the guiding principle of the scientist's life and work. In other words, like Einstein said elsewhere, I want to think the thoughts of God. I don't want my thoughts. I want God's thoughts. Because when I look at this harmony and intricacy of nature and how the laws are functioning in such a way that defies our understanding, there's intentionality behind that. There's a higher design behind that. And so Einstein recognized that because he stood in rapturous awe. He allowed this humble, childlike quality in his mind to grant him access to something way beyond what his instruments and mathematical formulas and prodigious intellect could give him. What a great embodiment of a true scientist. One who truly wants to know. The true value of a human being can be found in the degree to which he has attained liberation from the self. This is Albert. The true value of a human being correlates to his degree of self-liberation. He goes on, a human being is a part of the whole that we call the universe, a part, limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical illusion. An optical illusion of his consciousness. This illusion is a prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for only the few people nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living beings and all of nature. That's why Einstein lamented when he saw where progress, so-called, and technology were headed. He says that our technology has surpassed our humanity. That unless we can harness this scientific knowledge and understanding of the subtle forces of nature with universal compassion, it will be our demise. Because it's an optical illusion to think that you're a fragment in this disconnected, chaotic universe. No such thing. That is a prison made by you in your own consciousness, based on your evaluations, interpretations, and judgments. It's an illusion in perception, a perception deception. Doesn't exist. It's only imagined. You are not separate from anything or anyone. This was beautifully laid out long ago in Buddhist teaching. His interdependent co-arising of all life. Where would you be without the sun? Where would you be without the 4 or 5 elements that make up your physical body? You know, the Buddha had a simple meditation in illustrating this, where he took a tangerine and he had his students look at the tangerine and see within the tangerine the rain, the wind, the sunshine, the animals that fertilized the tree, the farmer's hand that picked it. All of these extenuating causes and conditions gave rise to the tangerine that you now hold. And that tangerine has embedded within it all these levels and forces and entities and natural occurrences within the cosmos. The farthest stars and galaxies are layered into this tangerine. It's a direct, immediate expression of the entirety of the universe. We label it as a tangerine. We think we know what a tangerine is. But Buddha was always asking us to look deeper, because we have a superficial understanding of what we consider to be what's in front of us. Consider yourself. You know, in the story of Genesis, there's all of this hidden meaning, as we discussed last week. When God in the first 6 days of creation creates the light, the darkness, the luminaries in the sky, the oceans, the earth, the trees, the shrubs, the grass, the creepy crawlers, the swimming things, and the flying things, and the animals on the planet. He's creating all of these levels and dimensions of life, right? From stars to ants. And then there's this profound statement, let us make human beings in our likeness and image. And for centuries, it's been poured over, well, what does that mean? Who's the us? And then some have said, well, the us is that God spoke to the angels. And so the angels are part of this co-creative expression of bringing into existence human beings. Others have said, well, this is actually an early occurrence, the earliest, of the Trinity principle within the inspired scriptures. So God is speaking of the us as the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Well, there's another interpretation that I really like. And it's saying in this interpretation that the us is everything that preceded the creation of man. The light, the darkness, the stars, the planets, the shrubs, the grass, the trees, the creepy crawlers, the swimming things, the crawling things on the planet, the animals. All of it is the us that gets built into the human being. That we are a composite, a microcosmos, a little universe that contains every strata of life built into our housing, from the stars to the ants, to the plants, to the minerals and stones and crystals. It's all within us. And if you do a careful search in the most advanced forms of physiology and anatomy today, you'll see that is the case. The paramecium cilia is part of your intestinal walls that filter out the stuff that you're eating. The crystals are going through your bloodstream. The minerals are in your bones. You're breathing the air and all of the elements, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. It's all part of this pulsing mystery of you. You're all of it. And you have access to the library of all of it. Your DNA literally is nuclear fission coming from the heart of stars. And it's transcribing a code to build you in the womb. Again, Einstein saying, staggering. We can't compute this, and yet we are it. That's why when we start to really peel off the layers of our optical illusion, this false perception, these judgments that we so consider to be reality. This is who she is, this is who I am, that's a chair, this is a rug. It's all bunk. It's all made up. We all agree on it. So when I say chair, we all know it's a chair. But if, like he says in A Course in Miracles in the workbook, if you were to really look at that chair, really see what this chair is, it is literally God manifesting before you. It's the secret of the universe right here in front of you. But we don't have the eyes to see it. We're caught in the imprisoning illusion of our own thinking, right? And yet at the same time, we are what we are looking for. We are the totality of the universe. So that's why it says, let us make man, or let us make human beings in our likeness and image. So not only do we embody within us all life, the whole spectrum of being, from stars and galaxies down to minerals and mud, but we also have a divine spark that's part of the us. That God is literally embodying him herself as you. That's why when you wake up to being a knower, no longer caught in the optical illusion as the perceiver, making up your own fantasy within the perceptual dualisms of your separate thinking, when you are saying, I'm ready to wake up, then this hidden divinity, which is who you really are, and it is the source and center of all things, will come back into your awareness, and the universe that you are is glorified. Like, this is the end game that we were talking about last week, the end game or omega point. Right? We looked at this in terms of Teilhard de Chardin's understanding that we start off as the physiosphere, that there's the mineral level, the earth level, and then what emerges from that is biological life that's built on the structure of matter and energy. And now biological life, living cells can emerge in the world, plants then become animals, etc. And then comes the mind emerging from life. And now human beings are that mind emerging from life. But we transcend and include the physiosphere, the biosphere, and now we are the nous, or mind sphere. But the end game is to go back into the theos sphere, which is the next emergent field. Theos for God in Greek. So we are gods in embryo. And as we cultivate this inner virtue and this desire to wake up, that hidden divine element that is latent within us becomes activated. And what begins to emerge is a bridging effect between the mind and divinity. And that's where we are as churchgoers, whether we know it or not. We are here to bridge the mind with divinity. But what's so beautiful about this path is that we keep transcending and including. So the human being doesn't go away. It expands into divinity. And everything that was lower in the ordering of the emergent events gets taken up, just like you take up the minerals and the living cells into the mind. And the mind now controls the life level and the earth level. We can manipulate the levels below us, right? The next emergent field has more power and agency over the earlier emergent fields. Are you following this? So when we emerge into our divine nature, this divinity will have us transcend into a light being, from skin to light. We will know ourselves as light, and now we will then work on the mind. The mind will no longer be how we identify. We will actually change the fabric of the mind, change the fabric of the cells, change the fabric of the earth life. And that is Einstein's equation. E equals mc squared. That energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. When we go into the theos sphere, we literally have a quantum shift, an orbital leap into light, and we will return to the original pattern and design of the man and woman of light, the Christ. And we will glorify nature. The whole universe will burst into song. The trees will clap their hands. The rivers will sing. All tears will be wiped away from the eyes, because we will have reached the end game. You can speed this up in you, or you can slow it down in you. Your choice making determines the world you're getting. Okay, I'm going to pause. So it's as natural as breathing. You have no real qualms about being a mental creature. It's just, you wake up, it's who you are. It's the same thing as you begin to bridge into your divinity by letting these higher thoughts colonize your mind. There will become more and more light occurring at the level of your mind. And you'll start to open the doors of your perception to your infinite self. And you will see, as that beautiful poem from William Blake says, eternity in an hour, and the entire universe in a grain of sand. Because you will have seen through the appearance level back into the substratum of the divinity that governs all things, that is all things. So now, that was our first leg of the journey inward. It's important to have some kind of practical traction on how to get into this attunement or alignment with this end game that's built into your DNA. That's what's remarkable about this. The end is from the beginning. Like We were saying last week, the Christ is saying in the book of the Apocalypse or Revelation, Ego eimi Alpha Chi Omega. I am the beginning and the end. And what's fascinating about the Christology of the New Testament is that it says in John's Gospel, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And all things that came into being through the Logos or Word of God. He is the light that shines in the heart of all living things. He's the origin moment of you. He's more you than you think you are right now. I got chills. You will know yourself as the Christ, and then you'll be like, of course. What a joke I was playing on myself. And it's wired into your DNA. Just like the origin moment happened, the omega moment, the end game will happen. It's wired into creation. That's why, again, in that beautiful passage in Colossians where Paul lays out how all of the hierarchies of the cosmos, the archangels and the angels and all of these other levels of being are being emanated from the Christ mind. And as they come out of the Christ, he has dominion over all of them. And they all come back into him because they are all under the one substratum that he is, that we are. So everything that's happening, Paul says in Ephesians, another similar letter to Colossians, he says that it's an enkephale osistai. It is a recapitulation, bringing everything that was created back into the head, back into the origin moment. Everything that's happening at the alpha phase, coming from the origin moment, will come back into the omega moment. It's in your DNA. You're journeying back, whether you know it or not. And you could speed it up or slow it down. The more you allow this bridging effect, where you accept his thoughts rather than your thoughts, you speed it up. And your energy quickens. And you become more and more attuned to the light, to the theos sphere. And then everything you look on, you quicken, because you're the universe. You thought quicken was just for taxes. The speed of light. This is another Einsteinian idea. Einstein said basically that matter, everything that we think is solid, is gravitationally trapped light. It's light that's been slowed down. So as we quicken the elements, the atoms, the subatomic particles in all things. It's what the Kabbalists called raising the sparks. Tikkun ha'olam, the correction of the universe. You're literally quickening the substratum, the fabric of matter, and you're bringing it back into light. This is how you break the chains on the optical illusion of separation. Okay? So again, this is the territory that we're traveling on. The vehicle that gets us to the destination, remember, this is all psychological. It is cultivating a character that is in attunement with the light, not with the skin. The principles of the skin operate in a selfish, what's in it for me paradigm. Behold the world. Even animal nature, as beautiful as it can be sometimes, it is red in tooth and claw. It is simply there to take and feed on other life. When you operate as the light, not the skin, you're now going to give to life, not take. And as you give, as you become a giver in your life, all your needs are met. You know, I've said this before, the Dalai Lama, in talking about the bodhisattva, which is the light giving, right? Bodhi is light. Sattva is being, the light being. There you go. The Dalai Lama says that the light being operates in a very selfish way because the bodhisattva knows that in order for her to have everything, she must become the perfect giver. So her fulfillment is based on a completely different paradigm than the selfishness. The selfless or self-full, I prefer self-fullness, means that you're always giving to yourself in the form of others. And as you become aware more and more that this is the way back home, that I become a giver and a forgiver, then my memory comes back into alignment with the universal self. I'm no longer in the optical illusion of imprisoning myself. I now see myself in all beings. I am the universe. What else can it be? So these character qualities are essential for your not only cultivation of virtue, which will harmonize you more and more with the ground of your being or Buddha nature or Christ consciousness, but they are also these forces that will go to work in your life and create miracles. So when Jesus in A Course in Miracles discusses what are the characteristics of those who are embodying the God principle in their life, he starts out with the first character quality, and that is trust. This is the foundation of your life's journey back into God. If you were to look only at the appearances of this world, holy crap. I mean, if you're not having your head in the sand and you're really looking at what's going on, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. If you're not buying the narrative of corporate media saying it's all okay, go back to sleep, and the economy's never been better, it's all Putin's fault. I mean, if you're not bought into that optical illusion that is controlled by the oligarchs and billionaires, and you're really looking, then you'll see from that skin perspective, you can't trust anything or anyone. Trust in this world is impossible. Just look at your own family dynamics. How you've been let down or you've let others down. Trust just seems like it's willy-nilly. It really is all shifting sand. But there's another kind of trust that must be cultivated in order for harmony, sanity, peace to come into your mind and stay. And listen to how he talks about trust. The teachers of God, those who are embodying the God principle, have trust in the world because they have learned that the world is not governed by the laws that the world made up. Right? All this agreement reality, Democrat, socialist, Republican, communist, anarchist, this is all made up. It's all agreement reality that doesn't really exist. It's an optical illusion. The one who embodies the God principle sees through the appearance level of ideologies and realizes the deep structures in the universe are governed by another power. It is governed by a power that is in us, but not of us. It is this power that keeps all things safe. It is through this power that those who embody the God principle look on a forgiven world. So what does that mean? When we start to set aside all of our judgments and opinions and beliefs, and we get quiet, and we allow who we really are to start to rise to our awareness. Like, remember, you don't have to do anything for this knowledge to come back. You just have to get out of the way, get what's in the way out of the way, and it will show up on its own. Becoming very quiet, this hidden power that's governing your life will manifest in your awareness. Right? You'll stand in rapturous awe, as Einstein said, when you begin to sense the mind behind creation. This power keeps all things safe. So no matter what's happening at the appearance level, you could trust that no matter what situation is occurring and what struggles or war or whatever may be going on, all things are truly safe at the ground of being. The appearances will come and go, but you're not getting caught in the appearances. You're seeing through into who they really are, what's really occurring, and you'll trust that this power is there protecting all life. And it says, when this power has once been experienced, it is impossible to trust one's petty strength again. Who would attempt to fly with the tiny strength of a sparrow when the mighty wings of an eagle have been given him? And who would place his faith in the shabby offerings of the ego when the gifts of God are laid before him? So trust is the first characteristic of how we are navigating back into reality. Okay? It's the foundation. So no matter what's going on in your life, you could actually shift your perception to knowing that there's something of a design behind this that you can trust. So we're going to go through a couple of more, I think, that are going to be really helpful. So we're cultivating virtue in aligning with the core of our being. We cannot know who we really are if we are not thinking God's thoughts with him. If we are thinking the ego's thoughts, we are in an optical illusion of separation, and we're cutting ourselves off from our peace, our security, our happiness, our ability to trust in a power that's governing and keeping all things safe. So in order to have these thoughts return to our awareness, we cultivate the foundation of trust in every moment, and also honesty. Honesty is the next character quality. And we're going to play on this idea of honesty and how important it is. What he calls honesty is actually better said as ultra integrity. that if you're not honest with yourself and directly looking at what's in the way, what you're doing to block yourself from your own divine nature, then you're going to see problems in the external world that are actually direct reflections of your own self-deception. When your thoughts, your speech, and your actions don't line up and have this integrity to them, you will then be out of harmony, and you will be in a place of dis-ease or imbalance. And that will also create energetic disattunement. You will not be in the direct flow of your divine nature. Right? This is why honesty or integrity is of ultimate value in how we walk this world. And it can be a very uncomfortable readjustment if we are not living in ultra integrity. Right? Not that I am in any way uncomfortable. Well, I just happen to have an ultra integrity voice operating in my life to always check me. Because again, it's like, you're a pilot and you're flying an airplane. And if your altimeter is off a degree, you'll keep veering off, even though it's a 1 degree, misalignment. You'll eventually go so far off that you'll not end up where you thought you were going. That's why honesty, self-honesty, and operating with integrity, fundamental to knowing your divinity. Be your word. Look what he says. There is nothing you say that contradicts what you think or do. No thought opposes any other thought. No act belies your word, and no word lacks agreement with another. Such are the truly honest. At no level are they in conflict with themselves. Therefore, it is impossible for them to be in conflict with anyone or anything. Your conflicts in your interpersonal dynamics with other people are echoes, not causes, of your internal dishonesty or lack of integrity. So people will come on cue and show you. And if you're not being honest with yourself, you'll stay lost in the appearances and your optical illusions of how you're judging and evaluating what they're doing and never looking at yourself. Look what he says also with this idea of integrity. The peace of mind which advanced teachers of God experience is the peace of mind which the advanced teachers of God experience is largely due to their perfect honesty. So peace of mind and honesty are one. Can't have peace without being totally honest with yourself and totally honest in all of your dealings with others. Conflict is the inevitable result of self-deception, and self-deception is dishonesty. So like we're saying, when we don't realize we're the universe and everything that we're looking at is a reflection of us, we're not being honest with ourselves. And we're not treating others as they truly are, also embodiments of everything. And the only thing they deserve is our appreciation and love, even if they're not acting in a way that seems deserving of it. This is why he'll say elsewhere in the Course, the one interpretation to all motivation is that you are either seeing an act of love or seeing a cry for love. And this love is the unified consciousness that would put that mind back into right relationship with who they are as the universe of God. If you don't give them that, you're withholding it from yourself. So when you're self-deceiving, saying, I'm not the totality of creation, I'm this little skin bag. I'm the name that I believe, I'm the judgments that I have, and I'm these separate things that I perceive, and I'm the one who's evaluating it all. You're not going to have peace, and you're going to perpetuate self-deception. So that's why he'll say this in light of honesty. There is no challenge to a teacher of God. Challenge implies doubt. And the trust on which God's teachers rest secure makes doubt impossible. Therefore, they can only succeed. In this, as in all things, they are honest. They can only succeed because they never do their will alone. They choose for all human beings, for all the world, and all things in it, for the unchanging and unchangeable, beyond appearances, and for the higher self and the source of the higher self. How could they not succeed? They choose in perfect honesty, sure of their choice as of themselves. So this is, again, aligning or attuning us back to this universal self that we are. We are all things in creation. We have to start seeing that we are that and make healthy choices. We're doing this individually, but we must start also doing it collectively. How we treat our environment. But start with how you treat the people in your life, the animals, the pets, the lizards, the spiders, the property of others, how you open a door and shut a door. Let grace and mindfulness permeate everything so that you have this ultra integrity and you're literally channeling the highest levels of divinity through into the lowest levels of the matter energy field. And you're literally weaving them and bridging them together so it's one tantra, one flow. That's your job as an Adamic embodiment. We're going to have to leave it off there. Blue bag's going to go around. If you have any thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on Facebook, thank you for your offerings. You can find the link and the section on the comment section below. And just make sure you put for the 8 a.m. service. We greatly appreciate the generosity towards this service and the church in general. Any thoughts, questions? We just bring our gratitude to the offering that it was given with the intent to bring light into the world and to bring all beings back to true safety and true knowledge. And so it is. Amen. All right, my fellow universe. We can rise and seal the deal. just get a sense of all the many levels of your being. The molecular, the atomic, the cellular, the electrical, the consciousness. And as you stay in this moment, this origin moment, as the embodiment of the totality, the gnosis, the knowledge, comes to us as the light of God, the love of God, the power of God, and the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Have a beautiful day. Course in Miracles tomorrow, 7:15 p.m. in the classroom. Do join us. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, everybody, what's left of it. Peace, joy, and love.